Welcome to the United Way Difference, a program that discusses Oshkosh community needs and how local nonprofit agencies are supporting people in our area. United Way's focus in the areas of income, education, health, and volunteerism helps to build a stronger, more caring, and compassionate community. The United Way Difference is brought to you by the Oshkosh Area United Way.
Hi, and welcome back to the United Way Difference. I'm Sue Panek, and my guest today is Christina Ebert. And Christina is an attorney with Legal Action of Wisconsin, and she's here to talk about a wonderful new program that they have called Elder Care Project. Welcome to the program. This is your first time, right?
Yes, it is.
Well, welcome
Thank you.
again. Christina, we started talking on the phone about this project, and I've been talking with attorney Karen Rail about this project for some time. But before we actually get into the project, what is Legal Action of Wisconsin?
Well, Legal Action of Wisconsin is a nonprofit law firm, and we serve low-income clients and elderly clients, and we do free civil legal services for those individuals.
So give me an example of civil legal services.
So civil legal services basically just differentiates from criminal legal services. So we do not practice criminal law.
So you wouldn't do like a murder?
No, we would not. No, that's up to the district attorney's office to prosecute those issues. So we just do civil legal services as basically anything that is not criminal. And of course, we have different types of services that we handle, but so we don't do all civil legal areas, but we do many of them. So we actually have been around, Legal Action has been around since 1968. And we serve 39 southern counties in Wisconsin. And so I think we have a slide on that, actually,
Right.
which actually shows the 39 southern counties that we serve. So you can see those right there. Actually, in the Elder Rights Project that I work with, we partner with another organization called Judicare. Again, they also provide free civil legal aid to low-income and elderly people as well. They have been around since 1966, but they actually serve the 33 northern counties in Wisconsin, and they also serve 11 Native American Indian tribes as well.
Okay, so just those two organizations serve the entire state of Wisconsin.
Yes.
And the Indian land.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. That makes it statewide.
And again, you said it was free legal services. So let's get into the elder abuse project.
Okay, so the Elder Rights Project that I work with, if you think about Legal Action of Wisconsin as sort of the umbrella nonprofit, and then we get different sources of funding that allows us to have different projects under our full law firm of Legal Action of Wisconsin. So my project is called the Elder Rights Project. We get funding to specifically serve Wisconsin residents who are age 60 or older, who are victims of some sort of crime or abuse, and who have a civil legal need that is related to their victimization. We do not, unlike a lot of our projects, we do not have any income or asset limits for this project in particular. And we do not require that anybody have any criminal charges pending or that there be actually any reporting to police or law enforcement about the abuse. So for us, it doesn't matter if there's a report to law enforcement about the abuse. We can still serve that person as long as there is an allegation of abuse or they're reporting essentially abuse to us.
Okay, and we're going to get into some more slides that have a lot more specifics on the type of abuse.
Exactly.
But how is what is the goal of the Victims of Crime Act?
So that is our source of funding, is the Victims of Crime Act. That was initiated in 1984. It actually takes money from fees and fines of convicted federal offenders and puts it into a pool of funding for the Victims of Crime Act. The goal is actually to respond to the physical and emotional needs of victims. It's really established to assist victims, to help victims, to stabilize the lives of victims, and to help victims sort of understand and participate in the criminal justice system by getting them more in touch with like their victim witness unit so that they can get alerts or notifications about any court activity or offender releases that might occur. And the general overall goal is to really protect the victim's safety in the long run.
Okay. We did talk a little bit about the eligibility. You said they needed to be 60 and older, and they had to be a victim of some a crime, and particularly in the area of elder abuse. And as I mentioned, we're going to get into some of that. And you did mention that there are no income limits. So let's talk about the specific issues of abuse that you guys cover.
Sure. So some of the abuse that we see, and again, we talked about how it's elder abuse. Basically, any abuse that occurs to someone who is 60 or older really fits the definition of elder abuse because it's an elderly person by the definition of elderly being 60 or older.
I might take exception to that now,
yeah,
but
exactly. I understand
you have to
that.
put the line somewhere,
yeah,
right?
I did not create that definition, but you know, if it's someone who is 60 or older who has experienced abuse, who is the victim of abuse. So that really matches the definition of elder abuse that we're discussing here. So types of abuse that we see is physical abuse, which really is intentional or reckless infliction of physical pain, injury, illness, any sort of impairment to any physical condition. We also see, unfortunately, sexual abuse, sexual assault, or sexual contact without consent falls within that category.
And that's kind of interesting because with everything that's been on the news recently about the sexual abuse of children, it's interesting. I know that people can be sexually abused at any age.
Sure.
But it just seems to be the ones who don't really have a voice tend to be the children and the elderly.
Right, right. And they tend to be at certain stages a little bit more vulnerable too, depending on their situation. But you know, it can be an issue. I know that there have been reports in the news about this occurring maybe in nursing homes with not just staff, but also other residents as well, who might be taking advantage of another person who's living in close proximity to them, that they, you know, may be exploiting some sort of vulnerability there.
Okay. So the next type of abuse that we were going to talk about was the emotional abuse.
Right. So emotional abuse is also something that we take into consideration, and I think it's something that a lot of people don't really recognize as abuse. It's either language or behavior that really serves no legitimate purpose, and its sole intent is to be intimidating, humiliating, threatening, frightening, or otherwise just harassing, and it does actually create that effect of intimidating or threatening that person who is receiving that communication and that emotional abuse.
And I would see where this would be, I don't want to use the word common, but I would see that this could be a problem in the fact that if you're my caretaker, and if I say anything, then who's going to take care of me? So
Exactly.
so in a sense, I would put up with it because, you know, I would say, well, they're taking care of me.
Right, and that is an issue. I think a lot of domestic violence agencies talk about this a lot, but it's sort of that power and control cycle that a lot of people are discussing with an abusive relationship, and that when someone has control over someone like that, where you know, the elderly person in this scenario would be relying on a caretaker to help support them in life and help keep them maybe independent or keep them in a certain housing situation, you know, they're afraid to maybe report it or say anything because they think if they don't just put up with it, they don't have any other recourse.
Right, and reliance is a good word.
Yeah.
So now we have neglect, and how is neglect different from abuse?
So, well, the neglect is a form of abuse,
Okay.
actually. So, neglect we often see would be a failure, as we were talking about caregivers, this would be a failure of a caregiver to really secure or maintain any sort of adequate care or services or supervision for an individual that needs that. And the result of that would be creating a significant risk to the individual's physical or mental health.
And you define a caregiver as the person who assumes the responsibility.
Correct. So it doesn't have to be a professional caregiver. It
Right.
could be a family caregiver, a friend who has maybe made an agreement to provide some sort of services or care to that individual.
Okay. financial abuse.
Financial
You
abuse.
and I just talked about this. I'm not going to get into the details, but we just talked about this yesterday on the
and
phone.
we do see this a lot. This would be, the definition is obtaining or receiving for less than fair market value, actually, a person's money, property, or belongings by either deception, coercion, or force. It could be in the form of abuse of a financial authority. So some people have power of attorneys for finances or a guardian of the estate appointed, and if that person is abusing that position that they've been given to look over those finances and that property, that is also financial abuse. Also, the use of personal information without authorization, that's the definition of identity theft. And then we also see forgery as well. A lot of older individuals are still using checks and doing a lot of transactions in paper. So, and you can actually do electronic forgery too now. So we see that come up as well.
Well, we do the volunteer income tax assistance program, and then the senior center does the tax counseling for the elderly program. And we've found that the IRS and others are really very picky about this topic and making sure that you are who you are.
Right.
And so all these new steps have been put in place for that. And actually, some people's tax refunds have been held up because even though they had their driver's license and we had a valid social security number and everything, somebody else may have compromised them. And so they're just making sure that they really are who they are. And in order to do that, they had to send more documentation to the government so that they could prove that, even though they are who they are.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we talk about it being a hidden epidemic. And why is that?
Well, actually, I think elder abuse is a much bigger problem than a lot of people realize. Some statistics that we've been able to find are that 10% of people who are 60 or older are affected by elder abuse. That's an estimate that as high as 5 million elders have been abused each year.
Okay, thank you for putting it in context.
Yes, I know. Sometimes the percentages.
That's not bad.
Right.
But 5 million people.
5 million people each year. Also, I mean, we talk about people being a little more vulnerable. Those who have dementia, have been diagnosed with dementia, about 50% of those individuals have been reported as being affected by some sort of elder abuse.
Well, and that makes sense because people are thinking, no one will believe them.
Exactly. And a big problem with this, so obviously it's a big issue in the United States, but as few as 1 in 23 cases are actually reported to authorities, and even fewer are prosecuted. So it's a real issue of people recognizing and reporting the abuse that's occurring.
Okay, we've got just about a minute before we go to break, so if you want to talk about the warning signs.
Sure. So one thing that people can really do to help prevent or at least reduce elder abuse is to recognize the warning signs of abuse. Some of the warning signs are physical injuries, especially when they're unexplained, if there are bruises and there was no fall that occurred, or repeated injuries in similar areas. Also, just general poor physical condition like dehydration or malnourishment might be a sign of neglect of an older individual. Their basic needs being unmet, again, that could be neglect. Any unusual banking activity or sudden transfers of property recently, or just a loss of income or money just that disappeared from an account, that's a huge sign of financial abuse. If there are just like strained or tense relationships, that may be an indicator that there's some abuse going on. And changes in personality or behavior of an individual might be an indicator that they are being abused at that time. And withdrawal and isolation also is a personality indicator of abuse.
So if you've got that person who's really outgoing and gregarious and all of a sudden they're not any longer,
Right.
It's something to maybe just
Find
think
out
why.
or check in with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a quick break, so I hope you'll stay with us to get some, there is some success stories that we have to tell you too, but learn a little bit more about the Elder Rights Project with Christina Ebert from Legal Action of Wisconsin.
It's not a charity. It's more than a charity. It's about helping people we live with. It's about being the type of person that the 6-year-old version of ourselves wanted us to be. It's about community and looking out for one another. It's about money, yes, but it's so much more than money. It's about friendship and common values. It's about opening doors when others are slammed shut. It's about giving kids a place to be kids and growing up knowing they live in a community that cares about them. It's about making sure that everyone gets to see the dentist, because we want to make sure that they have every last tooth in those smiles. Ultimately, that's it. It's about the smiles, old smiles and new smiles. It's about us, all of us, our community living united, because great things happen when we live united. Will you join us?
Hi, welcome back to the program. My guest is Christina Ebert. She is an attorney with Legal Action of Wisconsin, and she's here talking with us about the Elder Rights Project. So welcome back.
Thank you.
So we've talked in the first segment about what elder abuse is. It can be anything from neglect to physical abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse. And we also talked about some warning signs, what to look for. But now, what can we do about the project? I mean, what can we do about the issue, and what does your project do about the issue?
Sure. So I sort of mentioned before, community-wise, a big way to help prevent elder abuse is to sort of recognize and report it. So often this falls in the hands of a family member or maybe a caregiver or just a friend who is around and communicates enough with the elderly individuals to sort of recognize that there may be some sort of abuse happening.
Okay, I'm going to back up one slide to those
Sure.
warning signs again.
Yeah.
Because those, we might want to repeat these if somebody came in maybe halfway through the show.
Sure. So again, some of the warning signs would be physical injuries can be a warning sign, especially if they're unexplained or there are repeated injuries in the same area. Again, neglect sort of warning signs would be if someone's dehydrated or malnourished or appears that their basic needs may not be met at that time. Financial abuse might be indicated by unusual banking activity. If a lot of money has been drawn out of their account recently, that, you know, many people are on a fixed income, so they have basically fixed expenses.
Right.
If they were spending $2,000 a month, and then all of a sudden one month $10,000 goes out of their account, that's a huge sign that there may be something inappropriate going on there. Or any sudden transfers of property or assets as well. If someone just gives their house away to their child or something like that without much explanation or warning, or it wasn't really in the plan beforehand, that may be an indication of some sort of financial abuse. If any sort of legal documents or checkbooks or any financial paperwork disappears as well without any sort of explanation.
Like all of a sudden you can't find the will?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. Or a checkbook goes missing or a credit card goes missing. That happens sometimes as well. And then just some sort of personal reactions to abuse could be strained or tense relationships with people who aren't the abuser at times. Isolation, if they're shutting people out, friends that would come over every week, if they're saying, no, I can't do it this week, that could be a sign of abuse as well.
Okay. So we talked about some of that, and we also just want to point out it needs to be for people 60 years and older.
Correct.
And there is no income limit for this program.
There's no income or asset limit that
Okay.
we have. Yeah.
Good.
So anyway, if you recognize some sort of abuse in an elderly individual, I would highly recommend talking to them about maybe reporting it to Adult Protective Services or the police. A lot of people don't want to do that because they don't. It could be a family member or a close friend that they don't want to push criminal charges on. They can also contact our office because we do not handle the criminal side of it. We only handle the civil side of it. So a lot of people are more comfortable with that, seeking out maybe a civil remedy to the abuse. So some of the things that we can do to help remedy abuse situations is helping people file petitions for protection orders. A lot of people know these as restraining orders. That could be a protection order for domestic abuse or harassment, or an individual at risk, which an individual at risk is actually defined as someone who is 60 or older who is experiencing some sort of harassment, abuse. The abuse could be financial, emotional, physical in an individual at risk.
So all those
order.
things we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
Okay.
So a protection order is a good remedy for a lot of people. We can also help with landlord-tenant matters. We can defend evictions if it's related to an abusive situation, and we can also actually evict abusers from an individual's home as well. So
Okay.
that's something
Oh.
that we can do. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So if, let's say, I don't have money to pay the rent because it's been taken out of my account, I could get an eviction notice.
Right.
But because I'm in the situation of being in an abusive relationship from elder abuse, you could step in.
Yep, we
Okay.
would step in and take a look and see if there is something we can do to
Okay.
to maybe stay the hold off the eviction, work with the landlord, and keep that person in their home.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how many landlords would find this interesting. Like somebody all of a sudden is paying their bills for all these years that they've lived with
Right.
them, and all of a sudden now they're not.
Yeah.
They might be the person that reports.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
a lot of people do live in their apartments for 20 years,
Right.
and so they do have that maybe relationship with their landlord where their landlord might pick up on something like
Right.
that.
Okay.
We can also review or revoke abusive power of attorney. So if someone is listed as power of attorney and they're handling that person's finances, and then there's abuse occurring with that, maybe they're writing checks out to themselves and unwarranted, unauthorized checks, they're taking money just out of the account for no reason, we can do a review of an accounting of that and see, if the money really was wrongfully taken, and then we can revoke that power of attorney if they are abusing that power.
Okay.
We can assist in recovering money and property from any sort of financial abuse or other abuse as well. And we do a little bit of foreclosure defense as well. I think this comes up a little more in our Milwaukee office. They just seem to be getting more of those cases.
Okay.
But sometimes foreclosure is a result of some sort of financial abuse or maybe a lending abuse scenario.
Oh, sure. Oop. Be the last.
And the last one was identity theft.
Right.
So if someone had their identity stolen, we can, they would probably qualify for our services, and we would take a look and see if there's something we could do for them. We also just do public benefits checks and see if there's any way we can obtain or preserve a public benefit that individual needs.
An example of a public benefit might be.
Food share benefits, Social Security, if they've lost their Social Security because of some sort of abusive issue,
Okay.
we can take a look at that. Also, family law matters. Believe it or not, many older individuals do get divorced. So we can assist with divorce and legal separations, especially if there is abuse in the relationship.
Okay.
So, and that does happen, unfortunately, and we do assist in those matters. We can draft very simple advanced planning documents, such as a power of attorney, as I discussed before. We do not do more advanced state documents like wills or trusts.
Oh, okay.
So that we would have to refer to someone who focuses in that area of law. Because,
But a healthcare power of attorney you
but
could
a
do?
healthcare power of attorney, financial power of attorney we could do. Yep.
Okay.
And then we also, as I said, give information and referrals to collaborating agencies if there's something that it's not really in our wheelhouse, or it might not really be there may not be a legal remedy for it. We are well connected in the area with our other nonprofit agencies, other organizations that might be able to better serve that individual.
Okay. So let's get into the success stories.
Sure. So we've been statewide since last October, and since then we actually have.
So this is really a fairly new program.
It is fairly new, and
Is it throughout the country?
No, it's not. It's just statewide. There may be other similar organizations in other states, but I don't really know about
Okay.
those.
I guess I should have asked, is it a federal program? And here it's a state program.
Right, we get federal funding, but it is a state program.
Okay.
Our elder rights program is. So we've seen a lot of actual successes. We've been able to help a lot of people. One thing that we've been able to do, as I discussed, is we have seen a number of cases where there has been an abuse of power of attorney in place.
Oh.
What we have been able to do is revoke that power of attorney, maybe get a new one appointed if the person has a good person in mind. And then we've actually obtained quite a bit of money from abusers to sort of repay what they've stolen. I think I had a case that was about $20,000 that got repaid to the victim.
And this happened over time, huh?
Yes, and it will happen, I think that one was about over 4 years.
Okay.
And that is, again, that goes to the issue of recognizing and reporting it. So by the time this person had abused the power of attorney, the power that they had, the abuse had gone on for 4 years, and a lot of money was taken out of the account. I think we have other instances where even more than $20,000 has been repaid. So another situation that we've been able to really assist in a lot is getting restraining orders against abusers. And just getting, when there is an abusive situation, we're able to file that individual at risk injunction order and get the abuser away from the victim, which is a very important step because it breaks that power and control cycle.
So what if you have somebody who's got the power of attorney and they're like your only family member? So who else then could do it for them? Do you?
Well, you don't necessarily have to have a power of attorney, so that's
Right.
one option. But if you are concerned about managing your bills and your finances, it doesn't have to be a family member. It could be a friend. It could be a professional that you know.
We have services too in the community for
Right.
stuff like that. Okay.
And so I don't know if I'm not quite certain if payee services would do that. I don't know,
Yeah.
but that might be an option we could look into
Right.
and
Okay.
work with someone on. Again, we've done some divorces where there's abuse in the divorce relationship, and then an interesting situation that has happened is people have essentially squatters in their homes, friends or relatives that come to live with them. They might promise to provide, financial support or other support.
I'll do work around the house. I'll mow your lawn. I'll do your laundry. Okay.
Or I'll pay rent, or I'll
Right.
pay utilities, or help you with your bills, and then they don't do that, and then they won't leave. And they might be stealing the credit card and using it, taking the checkbook, writing checks. So it's really important to get that person out of the home, and we can help with that.
Okay. Now, how would somebody get in touch with the services?
So we have a hotline. It's on the board here, 844-614-5468.
And that's a toll-free number, right?
That's a toll-free number, and it's available Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. An attorney or a paralegal answers the phone when someone calls, and they can essentially do an intake with that person
Okay.
and see if they qualify for our services, and if not, we can refer them somewhere else.
And then if they have questions, they can call that same number again?
Yes, exactly. It's not really an advice line,
Right.
but it's a hotline to see if we can help them and provide
Right.
extended services.
Right. And then if somebody wants to refer, they can refer directly to you guys?
Yes. I am in the Oshkosh office. They can make a direct referral to me. My office number is 920-233-6521. My direct extension is 6025. I don't mind if people call me with questions about referring an individual. And then you can always fax in a referral at 920-233-0307. But I always tell people our intake line is actually a really good way to kind of even find out if you're eligible for a service.
And is that the 800 number?
That's the 844-614-5468 number.
Well, this is fascinating. How many clients do you think you'd have already in the last second that we have?
For me individually in the past year, I couldn't even estimate, but I would say I have probably about 25 at any given moment.
Okay. Well, thank you for being on the show, and thank you for watching our program today. And thank you again for supporting your community through the United Way.